What's up? This is Tech Baron with the Radios and More channel. Today we're talking about a very interesting DMR type digital radio that's capable of the Moto Turbo standard known as DMR. This is a tier 1-2 time slot radio capable of broadcasting time division multiplex access signals, full digital. So the difference between an analog FM radio and a DMR radio is when you get really far with a regular walkie-talkie FM, it starts to get staticky at the edge of its coverage area. A DMR TDMA radio will be crystal clear all the way to the very edge of its coverage. These operate very similarly to a cell phone, how they talk to how a cell phone talks to the tower. So these are pretty high tech. You can get these for around $60 now because they're kind of older. Big chunky radio, feels good. Nice build quality, very good build quality in fact. This is made by a company called Baofeng. They're pretty well known. They make a shitload of different types of radios. This is just one of their digital flavors. When you turn it on, it's gonna look like this. It's gonna have, a little stubby antenna, fat battery pack, nice belt clip, and a drop-in charger. So the programming software is CPS for these, and it's very convoluted and kind of a pain in the ass. If you're not familiar with TYT or Tetra or Alence or like any of their software, you're going to have at least a month of a learning curve with this particular radio, because it was really difficult for me to nail this thing down. VFO mode on the analog is easy, but basically what I'm trying to say is FPP, field programmable option, is only for analog on this radio. You cannot input DMR on the fly. So you have to pre-program these with a Kenwood Ftdi cable, which you plug in there and you flash your radio like that, reprogram it. So it has really good selectivity. It can decode digital information over the air, as you've just seen. It supports MDC 9600. It's a fairly advanced radio. This is one of the few Baofengs that doesn't have that stupid flashlight on it. This is specifically meant for amateur radio use. It's a pretty cool radio. So you can get your firmwares for these at baofengradio.ca, and you can program the new FW. And also there's a thing like, how I just said flash your radio, you can flash a firmware to this thing, and most people think that you just turn it on and flash it over the computer. You will scramble the checksum of the memory and the controller for this. It'll still boot, but the screen will be completely scrambled. If you want to flash this radio properly with a new firmware, only do this if you're flashing firmware, not if you're putting channels in, okay? You hold your PTT and your power select switch number 1. Turn it on, and you'll see no screen and red and green flashing light. That is the hidden FW programming mode for this radio. If you're programming a firmware, do not forget to do this. You will totally fuck up the radio. So if you get a scrambled screen and you're like, oh shit, this is how you fix it. So you just flash it again while this is... You won't see anything on the screen. The computer will tell you that it's done and stuff. You unplug it, turn it off, and then turn it back on. You're good to go. But that's the proper way to firmware flash a DM1701. A lot of people have tried that and then freaked out, and there's forums about it. It's a common mistake, but a lot of people don't know, so you gotta know. And the little green button is your menu. You can have zones, different zones, like DMR digital. When there's a capital D like that, it's transmitting Motorola Turbo digital standard DMR over tier 1 on time slot 1. So when you key down, I set it to do an all call, so all DMR radios on that frequency can hear me instead of a group call or a single call. It's not secure at all. Anybody else with a DMR radio on this frequency can hear me. So There is a way to do like person-to-person calls and encrypted calls. Like if you see that little shield up there, if you press that button and turn it to green, it encrypts the audio with a time shifting signature. I can't remember how it works, but it chops up the signal and frequency hops it on the receive so nobody else can listen to it. Also with DMR, there's something called color codes, and you can transmit and receive at a specific color code, and anybody else who tries to listen to that frequency has to know the color code or they won't hear anything. That's another way to digitally secure DMR communications. But in DMR mode, you have contacts. Like you can contact specific people, specific radios, etc. In DMR mode, it knows when it's in DMR mode. When the D is there, the menus will be different. So you can send text messages. You can literally like type out texts, and it'll chirp a TDMA burst out and send a text. So let me go to analog and I'll show you the normal menus. See, now like some shit's missing. It changes a little bit. So this is my firmware version. It's digital 1.25 and then CP 1.05. So you have to use a special Ftdi cable with this radio. The normal Baofeng cable will not work. It has to be a special one specifically for the DM1701. DM1701 is the model number of this radio. But yeah, it's a workhorse. It's powerful. It's extremely powerful, actually, in terms of transmit. When used on digital mode, it's really incredibly good. For $60 nowadays to get into DMR, that's a steal in my opinion. It's kind of kludgy. The software is kind of picky. There's better stuff out there, but if you're a techie and you have patience, this is the cheapest way to get into DMR. So just wanted to talk about this cool little radio, and it has a channel select knob, which is super dope. I really like that. It has indent feel, feels good. All the switches feel really good. PTT, you got your buttons. All of these are programmable in the software. Everything is, even the P1, P2 buttons. So, you know, yeah, it's pretty cool. So, just wanted to talk about the DM1701 and the interesting design of this particular radio. So it's not very heavy. It's a good radio, and it has an SMA-F connection. So you can buy a different antenna and put it on there if you like a different type of antenna, like a signal stick, memory wire antenna, or a blade antenna, or a half-wave end-fed, which this type of antenna is. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. If you have any questions or comments about how to program these, I'm very adept in doing that. So I'll even do a little video on how to do this on a computer soon, so look out for that. Please remember to comment, rate, subscribe, and join your local ham radio club. All right, bye.